Hello everybody and welcome back to a new video. I am Pat from Pat's Path Predictor, and in this video we're going to be talking about the hurricane categories, each hurricane category, and what kind of damage you'd expect, what kind of storm surge, basically everything you'd expect with each category that a hurricane is going to be. So, without further ado, let's dive right into this. So, a hurricane is classified as a tropical cyclone with winds greater than 74 miles per hour, and anything below that and above 39 miles per hour is considered a tropical storm. So we're going to be going over all the characteristics as well as talking about like what damage you'd expect, the storm surge. Rainfall is a little hard to judge with these things. It just, in that case, it depends on how large and how long the hurricane stays there. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this. So a tropical storm, its winds between 39 and 73 miles per hour. Generally, you'd expect the pressure to be between 1005 to 990 millibars. So that's basically your typical pressure, typical wind speed. And typically the kind of storm surge you would see, it would be below 4 feet of storm surge. Unless the tropical storm's like really large, you could see more, but it's typically 4 feet or less. Now, a Category 1 hurricane, that ups the storm surge, that ups the winds, obviously. That's anywhere between 74 and 95 miles per hour. The storm surge you generally expect is around 4 to 6 feet, although I've seen Cat 1s that have done higher than that. I've seen Cat 1s that personally have gone up to over 7 feet of storm surge, so it's 4 to 6 feet is generally the range, but it can go as high up to 7 or even 8 feet, depending on how large this hurricane is. And the expected pressure you'd see is around 995 to around 980, maybe 975 if the hurricane's strong enough. And if you notice, these pressures are going to overlap. For each category, it's going to be the general range, and it's not going to be like it's not like a set range. Like tropical storm after 990 becomes a hurricane once it goes down to 989. It doesn't work like that, but yeah, I'm just doing this to explain the general range. So a Category 1 hurricane, you'd expect the range between around 995 millibars down to 980, 975 at the lowest. Now a Category 2 hurricane, that's where things get a bit more intense. You're going to see winds between 96 and 110 miles per hour. For a good example of that was Hurricane Agatha. And generally the pressure would be somewhere between like 980 and maybe as high as 985 down to usually around 960. Even that's a little bit low. 965 would be probably a good range right there. So yeah, the pressure you generally see would be between around 980, 985 at the highest to around 965, 960 at the lowest. And the expected storm surge you'd see, you would get around 6 to 8 feet of storm surge. That's generally what you would expect with these with the Category 2 hurricanes. Although Hurricane Ike, for example, when it made landfall in Galveston as a high-end Category 2, it had storm surge of over 20 feet. That's because Hurricane Ike was pretty much the size of the Gulf of Mexico. So the general range is 6 to 8 feet, but there are hurricanes, Category 2 hurricanes, that have gone way higher than that. A perfect example is Hurricane Ike. Now, a Category 3 hurricane, anything above Category 3 hurricane strength, that is considered a major hurricane, and this is why. Category 3 hurricanes consist of winds of 111 to 129 miles per hour, and the pressure generally is between around 965 and around 945, as a good example right there. And that's really where that's a general pressure location right there. And the storm surge you'd expect with that would be around, I'd say around 8 to 11 feet of storm surge with a Category 3 hurricane. There's been some Category 3 hurricanes that have had much larger storm surge. And there's been also Category 3 hurricanes that have had a little bit smaller storm surge because of where they made landfall at. But regardless, 8 to 11 feet is generally that area of basically that general range of the most average Category 3 hurricanes. Category 4 hurricanes, this is where things get really intense, and the difference of damage between a Category 4 and Category 5 hurricane, it isn't that much of a difference at this point. Category 4 hurricanes are winds with 130 to 156 miles per hour. Its pressure is generally around, I would say, 945 all the way down to 920. So that's basically that's the range of pressure. I've seen Category 4 hurricanes at a much lower pressure. I've seen Category 4s go down to all the way down to 915 in some instances, depending on how large they get. But yeah, and the expected storm surge you get from that, it's around I would say it's around 11, potentially up to 18 feet of storm surge. That's the general range that we see with these hurricanes. Hurricane Harvey, for example, it had around, I think it was around 12 feet of storm surge. I might be wrong with that, but Hurricane Michael, which was a Category 5 hurricane, had storm surge around 14 feet. So yeah, we've seen. So yeah, it's a general range of storm surge. Like the storm surge, like I said, it varies, but the average I'd say around 11 and 18 feet. But still, that's enough to basically, if you have a one-story house, that's enough to have your entire house under water with the wave action on top of that. So, like Category 3 hurricanes is where you need to start taking this very seriously. Like heck, Category 2, probably high-end Cat 2 is where you consider taking this seriously, but Category 3, that's where you really need to take it seriously. Category 4, just you need to get out of there. If the hurricane's going to make landfall, you need to get out of there. And now let's go ahead and get to the Cat 5. Category 5 hurricanes are extreme, they are powerful, and they are also rare. Category 5 hurricanes are winds with anything above 157 miles per hour, and the pressure, it's generally below 925 millibars. It's sometimes lower. It's obviously gets lower than that, but I'd say the highest pressure I've seen a Cat 5 in the past is around 925 millibars, and the reason is because like these things are absolute beasts, and the storm surge you'd see with this typically would be above 18 feet, but there have been some hurricanes that have been lower than that. Hurricane Michael, as I mentioned earlier. Another famous example is Hurricane Andrew, made landfall in Florida. It's had a storm surge of around 17 feet. I mean, it's right below that 18-foot threshold. We don't rate hurricanes based on storm surge. We rate hurricanes based on wind, but nevertheless. Another good example of a Cat 5, basically producing a lot of storm surge. I would have to say Hurricane Dorian, because Hurricane Dorian produced over 20 feet of storm surge when it made landfall in the Great Abaco and Grand Bahama. So yeah, that's a very extreme case right there. But Category 5s, like if you're expecting a Cat 5 at landfall, like you have no business staying where you're at. You need to get out of there. But yeah, Cat 5 hurricanes, I've also noticed, like I've seen hurricanes more increasingly in the last few years. I've seen more hurricanes just generally strengthen on land. Like we had Hurricane Michael, it ended up becoming a 160 mile per hour hurricane as it made landfall. It was originally a 155, which is Category 4. But then they found winds at Tyndall Air Base that had winds of around 160, so they upgraded a postseason analysis to Cat 5. So it's generally stuff like that we see. I'm noticing. A lot of people have noticed, actually, at least in the Atlantic Ocean in the Gulf of Mexico, is that these hurricanes will generally strengthen as they approach land. And there have been some cases that it hasn't happened. Like we had Hurricane Laura. It was rapidly intensifying. It kind of stopped strengthening about 6 hours before it made landfall. Same thing with Hurricane Ida as well, but that case was mostly due to an eyewall replacement cycle already going on. But yeah, that's basically the general range of these hurricanes, the general range of these categories. Now, the damage you would expect with Category 5 hurricanes, like your house is pretty much gone. That's catastrophic damage right there. That's as if a wedge tornado, hundreds of miles wide, and it could push a huge amount of water at you. Basically, just to for a lack of better terms, just hit and destroyed everything. So yeah, that's generally the category ranges we have right there for those of you who want to know about it. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps me out and helps me make more videos like these. The goal of this channel is to get more people engaged with weather, and I hope this is what I'm doing right here. I wanted to make this video kind of as a more informative because I know a lot of people don't really understand what they mean, like, oh, this is a Cat 5, oh, this is like a Cat 3, what does that mean? Well, and I hope I broke it down a little bit just to explain it a little bit better, but the key for hurricanes isn't the pressure, it's not the storm surge, it's not the rainfall, it's the wind speed. We rate hurricanes based on wind speed and not damage, and honestly, they should rate tornadoes like that too, in my opinion, but that's a story for another time. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.